You have noticed this in yourself, but you may not have a name for it. The way you remain standing when others would have collapsed. The way you absorb pressure that should have broken something inside you and somehow keep functioning. The way the people closest to you forget that you are also a person who can be tired because you never stopped working long enough for them to remember. You have noticed how the weight finds you. In every group, every workplace, every family, every relationship, you become the one who carries. Not because you volunteered, not because anyone explicitly asked, but because the weight needed somewhere to settle, and your structure could hold it. You have noticed the silence around it. No one says thank you for the load you bear, because no one sees it as a load. They see it as your nature. That is the most precise word for what they think. Your nature. They believe the carrying is who you are. They believe you do not feel it. They believe the gravity that bends them does not bend you. It bends you. They simply cannot see the bend. You have noticed something else, more private. The way you sometimes lie awake at 3 in the morning and your back finds the mattress like it is the first soft thing it has touched all day. The way your shoulders, the moment you finally sit down alone, drop a full inch from where you have been holding them. The way your jaw, when no one is looking, releases a tension you did not even know you were carrying. This is not your imagination. This is not your weakness. This is not a personality flaw, a self-pity story, or a sign that something is wrong with you. This is the architecture. Tonight, I will not give you sympathy. Capricorn does not need sympathy. Capricorn needs to understand the build. So I am going to show you exactly what you are, why you are this way, and what to do with the truth of it. The pattern is real. The pattern has a name. The pattern was assigned to you the moment Saturn was assigned to you. Most explanations of Capricorn fail at the first step. They tell you that you are ambitious, disciplined, hard-working, traditional. They list traits the way one lists ingredients on a label. None of this is wrong. All of it is shallow. What you are is not a personality. What you are is a structural function. There is a difference, and the difference is everything. A personality is a collection of preferences and tendencies. A structural function is a load-bearing role within a larger system. When the engineers of antiquity built temples and aqueducts, certain stones were placed at specific points, not because those stones had personality, but because the load required exactly that density, exactly that hardness, exactly that placement, or the entire structure would fail. You are a load-bearing stone. The placement was not chosen by you. The density is not your achievement. The hardness is not your moral virtue. These are properties of the material from which you were cut, and the cutter was Saturn. Saturn rules you, which means time, weight, and form are your operating system. Time, because your life unfolds on a schedule longer than other signs experience as a single life. You mature later. You accumulate slower. You reap further out. Weight, because the gravitational pull of your function is to hold what does not hold itself. Form, because everything you do tends towards structure, definition, edge, frame. This is the architecture. Now we'll show you where it came from. In the oldest layer of recorded thought we have access to, the Sumerian, more than 4,000 years ago, before Greece, before Egypt's pyramids reached their final form, before the alphabet that would carry the West into history, there was a god named Enki, sometimes called Ea by his later Babylonian inheritors. Enki was not the god of the sky. Enki was not the god of fire or of storm. Enki was the god of the deep waters that lie beneath the world, the freshwater abyss called the Abzu, on which the entire visible earth was thought to float. Enki's domain was what holds everything else up. The Sumerians did not give him the loud rituals or the flashy temples. They gave him the quiet authority of the substrate. Without Enki, the world above would have nothing to rest on. When the Sumerians wanted to describe wisdom, they did not describe it as illumination from above, as later Greek and Christian traditions would. They described wisdom as depth. Enki was the wisest of the gods because he lived in the place that supported all other places. His knowledge was not theoretical, it was structural. He knew how things stayed standing because he was the substrate they stood on. The other gods made decrees. Enki made foundations. This matters because Capricorn, in the oldest astrological tradition, was associated not just with the goat, that is a later, simpler reading, but with the sea goat, a creature whose front half walks the high mountains and whose back half disappears into the depths. The Sumerians understood that whatever rises highest must be rooted deepest. Whatever holds the most weight must reach the furthest into what is unseen. The mountain on top of the goat is held up by what the goat carries below. You are an Enki shape. Half of you appears in the visible world, at work, at home, in your relationships, in the structures you maintain for other people. The other half is in the Abzu, the substrate, the deep layer, the unseen carrying that no one ever sees you doing. They see only the visible half and call it your personality. They miss the other half because, by definition, the other half is below the waterline. This is not metaphor. This is the architecture of your function. When you feel like no one knows the half of what you carry, you are correct. And the Sumerians knew you were correct 4,000 years ago. There are 3 places in your body where the architecture localizes, and you can feel each one if you stop and look. The first is your spine, specifically the upper section between the shoulder blades. This is where the load enters the body when you take on weight that is not officially yours. You will notice that the tension is not in your arms, the way it would be if you were physically holding something. It is in the column itself. Your spine is the structural axis of the body, and Capricorn lives in the spine the way Saturn lives in the bones, as the frame around which everything else organizes. When the weight you have been carrying for too long begins to register as physical pain, it will register here first. Most Capricorns over 30 know this exact spot without being told. The second is the back of your neck and your jaw. These are the places where the carrying becomes voluntary holding. You do not just absorb the weight, you grip it with the muscles of your jaw, with the held breath in your throat, with the locked shoulders. By the time you are 40, this grip has become so familiar that you do not feel it as grip. You feel it as your default state. The realization that you have been holding something for years comes only when you finally release it. and the release is so disorienting that you sometimes cry without knowing why. The third is more subtle, and most people miss it. It is in your feet, specifically in the way you stand. Watch yourself the next time you are in a kitchen, or waiting for someone, or standing at a counter. You stand as if rooted. Your weight settles down through your spine, through your hips, into your feet, into the floor, as if you are fixing yourself to the ground. Other signs shift their weight, fidget, lean. Capricorn plants. The standing is not idle waiting. The standing is structural readiness. You are a column receiving a load that is not yet arrived. I just gave you the architecture. The architecture is yours forever. It does not change. What does change is the timing of when this architecture is most engaged. Each month brings specific astrological windows when the load increases, and specific windows when the load can be set down. That calendar, by week, by decade, is on Patreon. Foundation tier maps the weekly mechanics. Inner Circle tier breaks every window down by your specific decade. Early Capricorn, mid Capricorn, late Capricorn. Because your architecture activates at slightly different angles depending on where in the season you were born. The architecture here. The calendar on Patreon. Both halves of the picture. There is a question every Capricorn eventually asks themselves, usually in their late 20s or early 30s, sometimes earlier under hard pressure. The question is, am I broken? Am I missing something other people have? Why do I take everything so seriously? Why do I feel the weight of every commitment as if my life depends on honoring it? Why can I not just relax and let things slide the way other people seem to? The answer is no. You are not broken. You are not missing something. You are precisely what you were made to be, doing precisely what your construction was made to do. Other signs are not built to carry the way you are. That is not a moral failing in them. They are built for other functions, for movement, for inspiration, for connection, for transformation. Each sign is a specific tool. The mistake is to compare your tool to theirs and conclude that something is wrong with you because you cannot fly. You were not built to fly. You were built to remain. Remaining is the rarer gift. Look down at your spine. Feel the column of you from the top of your skull to the base of your pelvis. That is not a problem. That is not a wound. That is the load-bearing axis of a structure designed to hold what others would drop. The aching you sometimes feel between your shoulder blades is not a malfunction. It is the proof that the column is working. What others call your exhaustion is not your suffering. It is the cost of your gift. Endurance is who you are, not what you have to overcome, but what you were built from. The error is not that you carry. The error was ever thinking that the carrying was a defect. It was always the architecture. It was always the design. It was always what Saturn placed in you the moment your chart was set. Stop trying to be lighter. You are not built to be lighter. You are built to be the place where things rest. So now you have the frame, and the frame changes what you do from this point forward. You stop apologizing for the weight you carry. You stop pretending you are tired in the same way other people are tired. You are not. Capricorn tiredness is structural fatigue, not emotional exhaustion. and it heals through different methods. You stop trying to talk yourself out of being serious about things that matter, because your seriousness is not a flaw of personality. It is the function operating correctly. You stop comparing your pace of accomplishment to people whose function is speed. Your function is depth, and depth is slower by definition. And you start watching the architecture from outside it. When the weight finds you again, and it will find you again and again, in cycles longer and shorter for the rest of your life, you no longer ask, "Why me?" You simply notice the load has located its column. The function is engaging. This is work I was made for. You now understand who you are. The Patreon shows you when this architecture is most engaged each month, the exact windows when the weight increases, when it can be released, when your decade is most activated. The architecture is yours forever. The timing of its activation is what the foundation and the inner circle map for you, week by week. You are an Enki shape. The depth is the dignity. The carrying is the gift. The column was always meant to be you. Master Alistair. Only Capricorn. Only depth.